Their fellow flyers should skip their cigarettes, especially on short flights.
This is the Bell System's new touch-tone dialing.
Polio vaccine can begin to protect American youngsters.
Imagine stepping into the 1960s, a world of jukeboxes, rotary phones, and black and white TVs. At first glance, it feels charming and simple. But wait, things people saw as perfectly normal back then would blow our minds today. From smoking aloud on airplanes to kids riding in cars without seat belts, from doctors recommending cigarettes to milk delivered fresh to your doorstep, the 60s were filled with habits, gadgets, and traditions that seem shocking, funny, or even dangerous by today's standards. Get ready, because we're about to uncover 25 normal things from the 1960s that would shock people today.
Smokers have won, but in this battle, the smoke hasn't cleared. Many passengers without the nicotine habit say their fellow flyers should skip their cigarettes, especially on short flights.
All right, imagine boarding a plane today, only to see people lighting up right beside you, like it's totally normal, and no one bats an eye. Wild, right? Well, that was straight-up reality back in the 1960s. It wasn't just airports. Smoking was allowed in hospitals, offices, and schools, you name it. But the real showstopper: people were puffing away mid-flight, sometimes even in hospital wards. This was not seen as bizarre back then. In fact, it was part of life. Fast forward to today, and it's unthinkable. Why? Because regulators, scientists, and public health campaigns had had enough. The U.S. began banning smoking from planes piece by piece in the 1980s, and by 2000, it was completely outlawed on all U.S. flights. That shift, going from ashtrays and smoke clouds to fresh, dry, smoke-free cabins, shows just how dramatic our cultural and health awareness changes have been.
Mom, Dad, what's that? And, so now Mom and Dad have an opportunity to talk about their childhood and their experiences and, running around and looking for a quarter in the dish every time they saw a phone booth, right?
Imagine being out of town in the 1960s and needing to call home. You wouldn't reach into your pocket for a smartphone. You'd search for a phone booth, those shiny glass boxes on every corner. By 1960, AT&T had already installed its 1 millionth booth, and at its peak, there were around 2 million across the U.S. For a dime, you could connect with anyone, anywhere. It's crazy to think how many big moments, job offers, marriage proposals, even emergencies, took place inside those cramped boxes. Today, they're nearly extinct, except for a few nostalgic red booths in London. If your phone battery died right now, could you imagine waiting in line at a booth just to send a message? That little mental exercise shows how far communication has come.
This is the Bell System's new touch-tone dialing. With this indicator, you see how many seconds you saved the new way. Let's try it. Okay, I'll race you.
Rotary phones were a workout. You stuck your finger in a hole, spun the dial, and waited for it to spin back. Imagine doing that for every digit. Then came the push-button phone, first introduced to the public on November 18, 1963, in Pennsylvania. Thanks to new touch-tone technology, dialing became nearly twice as fast. This wasn't just faster, it was revolutionary. Push buttons paved the way for voicemail systems, phone banking, and even the keypad on your cell phone today. Think about it. No buttons, no smartphones. Could you survive making 10 calls a day on a rotary? That thought alone makes modern convenience feel like a luxury. But while phones were getting faster, another 1960s normal shows how slower and smokier life could be. Step into a car in the 1960s and you'll spot something shocking. Ashtrays and cigarette lighters built right into the dashboard, back seats, and even doors. Smoking wasn't just allowed, it was expected. These features were as standard as cup holders are today. Parents smoked with kids in the back seat, and no one blinked. Fast forward to now. Ashtrays have disappeared, replaced by USB ports and charging outlets. Imagine telling a teenager today that the charger in your car once lit cigarettes. They'd laugh and call it dangerous. And they'd be right. From smoky dashboards, let's jump into another kind of entertainment hub, the arcade, which in the 60s looked nothing like the gaming world we know today. Before PlayStations, Xboxes, and mobile games, kids in the 1960s crowded into arcades filled with pinball machines and electromechanical games. One standout was Sega's Periscope in 1966, which let players look through a periscope, aim torpedoes, and sink ships. It became a global hit and put Sega on the map. These machines buzzed, clanked, and lit up with flashing bulbs. No screens, just pure mechanics. Arcades were social hubs where teens hung out, competed, and showed off their skills. Today, arcades are niche retro spots, while gaming has gone digital and personal. When was the last time you touched a pinball machine? And speaking of big, clunky machines, let's move from arcades to another giant device people once thought was the future: the first mobile phones.
The Nokia 5110 is the first mobile phone with covers you can change yourself in seconds. For freedom of expression.
Believe it or not, mobile phones existed in the 1960s, but they were nothing like the sleek gadgets we hold today. AT&T's Improved Mobile Telephone Service, IMTS, launched in 1965, offering calls from cars. But here's the catch. The equipment was so big it filled entire trunks, and the phones themselves were mounted on dashboards. Only the wealthy could afford them, and coverage was limited. Still, these bulky car phones planted the seed for the mobile revolution. Picture lugging a suitcase just to make one call. The contrast alone makes people laugh and appreciate their pocket-sized smartphones. It's proof that even clunky, awkward beginnings can lead to world-changing inventions. And with that, we've gone from coin-operated booths to suitcase-sized mobiles, all in just one decade of normal life.
You say your firm control girdle's got you in a bind, and hours of shopping drives you out of your mind. And when you go for comfort, you lose your shape. Is that your problem, honey? Well, get hours of control without discomfort.
Back in the 1960s, many women wore girdles every single day. These tight undergarments squeezed the waist, hips, and stomach to create that perfect hourglass look. Ads pitched them as essential for a polished appearance, especially under short skirts and dresses. But here's the twist. Girdles weren't just uncomfortable, they were downright suffocating. In fact, when women's liberation protests hit in the late 1960s, girdles were tossed into the infamous Freedom trash can at the 1968 Miss America pageant as symbols of outdated beauty standards. Fast forward to today, and shapewear is stretchy, light, and way more forgiving. Would you wear a mini corset just to buy groceries? Now, from fashion that restricted the body, let's move to something that silently poisoned the home.
This project represents an industrial lead hazard project with both lead dust and lead contamination in paint and building materials. Pre-treatment sampling confirmed lead levels up to 100,000 parts per million.
In the 1960s, homes, schools, and even playgrounds were painted with lead-based paint. Why? Because it was durable, shiny, and cheap. The problem? Lead is a dangerous neurotoxin, especially harmful to children. Kids exposed to lead could suffer from brain damage, kidney problems, and behavioral issues. Shockingly, it wasn't until 1978 that the U.S. banned the use of lead paint in homes. Millions of 1960s homes still carry that toxic layer beneath newer paint. Imagine repainting your kid's bedroom and unknowingly exposing them to poison. That was an unspoken reality for families back then. Next time you admire a vintage 60s house, remember, those pretty walls might be hiding poison. From toxic walls, let's jump to temperature control, because even comfort looked different back then.
In this video, I'm going to show you how to override the preset temperatures for different times of the day in the programming on your Honeywell thermostat.
Heating your home in the 1960s meant walking up to a round dial thermostat, twisting it, and hoping you hit the right spot. The most famous was Honeywell's iconic round model, launched in 1953 but wildly popular throughout the 60s. No apps, no automatic timers, no learning algorithms, just a dial and guesswork. If you wanted the house cooler at night, you had to get up and turn it yourself. Today, smart thermostats like Nest adapt to your routine, save energy, and can be adjusted from your phone. Would you actually get out of bed just to change the heat? People used to do it every night.
Did you know in nearly half the states, teachers are permitted to hit their students? And according to a report today from human rights advocates, nearly 250,000 kids got hit during a recent school year.
Step into a classroom in the 1960s and imagine the fear, not of detention, but of the teacher's paddle. Corporal punishment was normal. Wooden paddles, leather straps, and rulers were used to discipline students, sometimes in front of the entire class. Parents often supported it, believing it built respect and character. In the U.S., this practice was legal in all 50 states at the time. Now, think about how shocking that would be today. Parents would flood school offices with complaints, and lawsuits would pile up. Could you imagine your teacher smacking your hand with a ruler right now? In the 60s, it was just another Tuesday. In the 1960s, you could turn on your family television and see characters smoking cigarettes and sipping cocktails, even during prime time. Tobacco ads were everywhere. Brands like Camel and Lucky Strike sponsored TV shows, and commercials glamorized smoking as modern and sophisticated. It wasn't until 1971 that cigarette advertising was officially banned from American television, FCC. Drinking also played a starring role, with entertainers like Dean Martin making cocktails part of their persona. Imagine kids sitting cross-legged in front of the TV, watching glamorous actors puff away, while ads told parents smoking was stylish. Today, such scenes would trigger health warnings and backlash. What if your kid's favorite cartoon had a cigarette ad in the middle? In the 60s, it did. From smoky sitcoms, let's move to another household norm that disappeared.
Regular milkman, where's Jim?
He's off sick, suffering from nervous exhaustion, the doctor said.
I don't suppose you'd like to come in.
Picture waking up in the morning, opening your front door, and seeing fresh milk waiting in a glass bottle. That was reality in the 1960s, when about 30% of U.S. households relied on milkmen for their daily dairy delivery. Families left empty bottles outside, and the milkmen replaced them with full ones. It was convenient, personal, and part of the rhythm of life. By the 1970s, though, supermarkets, affordable refrigeration, and plastic cartons made daily milk delivery fade away. Today, only a handful of eco-friendly or nostalgic companies still do it. Imagine never running out of milk because it showed up at your door every morning. Sounds pretty good, right? From something wholesome like milk, let's switch to something once hailed as a miracle, but later proved deadly.
Substance which resolves easily into fibers, soft to the touch, often silky, and endlessly divisible, it seems.
In the 1960s, asbestos was everywhere. It lined insulation, ceilings, floor tiles, and even hair dryers. Builders loved it because it was cheap, heat-resistant, and durable. It was called a miracle material. But the miracle came with a deadly price. Inhaling asbestos fibers can cause lung cancer, asbestosis, and mesothelioma, diseases that often show up decades later. Back then, no one realized they were breathing in poison every day. Today, asbestos is heavily regulated, and removal requires professionals in hazmat suits. Homeowners panic if inspectors find it during renovations. Would you believe the same material, once praised as a lifesaver, is now one of the deadliest building hazards? From the comfort of fresh milk to the hidden dangers in the walls, the 1960s remind us how quickly normal can turn shocking.
Once the Public Health Service authorizes its release, the polio vaccine can begin to protect American youngsters.
The 1960s weren't just about rock and roll and space races. They were also about fear. One of the biggest? Polio. Parents remembered summers when swimming pools were closed, playgrounds were empty, and children ended up in iron lungs. By the early 60s, salvation came in the form of the oral polio vaccine, created by Albert Sabin. Starting in 1961, kids lined up in schools to swallow sugar cubes soaked with vaccine. Imagine that, something as ordinary as a sugar cube carrying life-saving protection. Parents wept with relief because the nightmare of paralysis was finally fading. Would you let your child skip vaccines if you'd seen neighbors' kids lose the ability to walk? And while vaccines offered safety, ironically, kids faced another danger in a place meant for fun. Step onto a 1960s playground, and you'll see tall steel slides that got blazing hot in the sun, monkey bars over bare concrete, and spinning merry-go-rounds that launched kids into the dirt. Safety mats? Forget it. At best, there was gravel or asphalt. Broken arms, chipped teeth, and skinned knees were almost rites of passage. Parents shrugged it off as kids being kids. Compare that with today's brightly colored play structures surrounded by rubber padding and safety rails. Imagine falling 10 feet onto bare concrete. Back then, it wasn't a lawsuit, it was just Tuesday.
Growing up, that was date night a lot of times. We went to the drive-in to see movies and stuff.
It's different from like a normal movie theater where you just go in and sit down and...
On a warm summer night in the 1960s, families piled into cars and headed to the drive-in theater. For a few dollars, you'd park under the stars, hang a speaker on your window, and watch the latest film with snacks from the concession stand. By 1958, there were nearly 5,000 drive-ins in the U.S., and they remained wildly popular through the 60s. It wasn't just about the movie. It was about community, dating, and family outings. Today, only a handful of drive-ins remain, mostly kept alive for nostalgia. Imagine swapping your Netflix binge for a night in your car. Under the stars, romantic or inconvenient.
For 1974, use unleaded, but people cheat. To save approximately 9 cents per gallon, they'll pump regular into their supposedly unleaded-only cars.
Filling up your car in the 1960s meant more than just topping off the tank. You were inhaling leaded gasoline fumes. At the time, tetrethyl lead was added to fuel to boost engine performance and reduce knocking. The problem? That same lead spewed into the air, settling in soil, homes, and even children's bloodstreams. Studies later linked it to neurological problems, developmental delays, and environmental damage. Back then, nobody questioned it. Gas stations proudly advertised ethyl as premium fuel. Today, leaded gasoline is banned worldwide for road vehicles. The last country to ban it was Algeria in 2021. Imagine pumping gas that slowly poisoned entire cities. Because in the 60s, that's exactly what was happening. From gas pumps to grocery stores, the poisons didn't stop there.
Of the Nutrition Facts label is meant to make it easier for consumers to make informed food choices. One of the most noticeable changes is the calories are now in a larger, bolder type.
Open a food package in the 1960s, and you wouldn't find calories, sugar counts, or ingredient lists staring back at you. Why? Because nutrition labels weren't required. The FDA didn't make them mandatory until the Nutrition Labeling and Education Act of 1990. In the 60s, shoppers bought cereal, canned goods, and frozen meals without knowing fat content, sodium levels, or even if additives were hiding inside. Think about it. Parents fed kids sugary cereals marketed as healthy simply because the box said so. Today, we scroll through apps to track macros and scan labels for allergens. Would you eat dinner tonight without knowing what's in it? In the 60s, everyone did. In the 1960s, a pill called methaqualone started as a real sedative and later slipped into party life. People took Quaaludes to relax, and the tablet with the stamp 714 became famous. Some doctors prescribed them legally, and many people liked the calm, easy feeling. Nightlife folded the substance into club culture, where it smoothed anxieties and mixed with music and dancing. As demand rose, illegal makers copied pills and spread the substance more widely. Soon, problems showed. People became dependent, behavior changed, and crashes and bad choices followed. Laws later stopped legal supplies, and the public's view of it shifted sharply.
Hey, look inside that TV guide. There's something wonderful, wonderful waiting just for you.
Once a week, families opened a tiny magazine and planned nights around television. TV Guide made it simple. One small book listed every show for the week, with short notes and tiny pictures. People circled the comedies, taped a note on the fridge, and argued over who got the remote. With only a few channels, a new episode meant everyone watched at the same time, making TV feel like live, shared theater. Some households missed shows without the guide because finding a favorite program could be a hunt. Today, we stream and click, but the old ritual brought people together across rooms. High school halls were filled with bold skirts that spun like small canvases. Poodle skirts used lots of fabric to make wide circles that swayed with every step and swing. Girls loved to add a motif. Poodles, musical notes, or initials, so each skirt showed personality. The felt fabric felt soft and easy to care for, and the full shape matched the dances and records of the day. These skirts were about fun and showmanship. They made twirling dramatic, and selfies, if there were any, would have burst with motion. Later generations moved on to other looks, but the memory stays lively and bright.
Good morning. I'd like to talk over with you our job of taking care of our party line customers. It's one of the most important jobs we have to do.
Calling someone could be a group event in the 1960s because neighbors shared lines, and a ring pattern told who should pick up. People learned to listen for a unique bell code and to wait if their number was not first. This system kept costs low and tied communities together. Neighbors heard each other's calls, and small talk sometimes drifted across houses. The lack of privacy could annoy people, but it also made for a strong sense of village life even in growing suburbs. When private lines came, the hush of personal calls changed how towns talked.
That signal means to stop whatever you are doing and get to the nearest safe place fast. Always remember, a flash of an atomic bomb can come at any time.
Many school days once began with a strange, quiet routine. Children sank under desks and covered their heads. Teachers spoke calmly about duck and cover, and cartoon films showed safe moves to make if sirens sounded. The drills grew from fear of large wars and a desire to teach safety, even if the real danger was far greater than the drill suggested. For kids, it mixed a serious mood with odd actions, tucking under a small desk against a giant blast. The practice left a mark, a strange childhood memory that still sits with older generations.
You'll notice they use all their fingers, and they're in for a long spell. But the blue ribbon of the typewriter ribbon world is well worth a couple of sprained wrists to get.
Rooms hummed with the sound of type bars and the steady pace of fingers hitting keys. Schools taught typing as a key job skill, and students learned on heavy machines that needed a firm touch. Typing classes shaped discipline. Teachers timed tests, rang bells on mistakes, and pushed students to reach fast, clean speeds. The clack of many typewriters together made a busy, focused noise that meant work was happening. For many, mastering typing opened offices and careers and proved you could handle precision and speed. Even now, the neat habits from those classes still help people who type on their computers or laptops each day.
You're gonna make. Now it's fun to decorate cookies, treats, and cakes with your friends and your Easy Bake.
Now it's more fun than ever to
decorate!
Amid the rise of 1960s feminism, a toy emerged that perfectly blended tradition and rebellion: the Easy Bake Oven. While marketed to future homemakers, it empowered kids with real, edible results. The first three versions, from 1963, were a turquoise, tan, and yellow triumph of ingenuity. Using a simple light bulb for heat, children slid tiny pans filled with powdered mix into the oven's slot. The resulting cakes were rarely gourmet, but the magic was undeniable. This wasn't just play, it was the irresistible thrill of creating something real, a delicious paradox baked in a colorful toy.